What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you some information about a surprise free DLC for Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Now, it should be going up right as this particular video is going live, so it should be available now. And that is the Visitors from Morta DLC. Now, this includes both a brand new quest that includes some visitors from Morta, if you'd imagine, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but I would say the big news here is really the two new archetypes that this DLC also adds, for the Witch and the Fighter, respectively. But first, let's talk about what this does for you content-wise. Now, I believe this officially becomes available in Act 3 once you get access to Dresden, and at some point during then, Arsino, your cleric, should come up to the command room and inform you that a pack of goblins has been sighted not that far away, and you can go check in on that situation. When you arrive there, you find a couple members of the Bergson family trying to deal with some corrupted goblins. Now, if you're unaware of who these characters are, this DLC is a collaboration with the Children of Morta game. So this is an action RPG from, I believe, 2019 that centers around a family of heroes, the Bergsons. And it looks like after some goblins fled here in order to escape the corruption of that world, they wound up here, and we have a short quest to basically put that right. There's some fun interactions there, you get some extra loot, and obviously a few conversations with the Bergsons before they go on their way. Now, at the end of that interaction, you're going to pick up the Morta Cape as your reward for this, or your primary reward, which is a, I would say, pretty awesome self-improving cape. Basically, the higher your character level is, the better this cape gets, giving you things like immunity to blindness, paralysis, damage resistance of 5, a +1 to the DC of all of your spells and abilities, a seemingly at-will version of Dimension Door at max level. So, an incredible cape. In fact, I would go so far as to say that with everything on it, it's probably one of the best capes in the game. And honestly, as far as free DLC goes, that's not bad, but as I already mentioned, I would say the real highlight here is probably those two new archetypes that you can get for free. These are the Defender of the Hearth Fighter, which I think is probably the better one, and then the Keen-Eyed Adventurer Witch. So let's start with the Defender of the Hearth here. Now basically, we give up a fighter bonus feat, a bit of weapon training, and then your final weapon mastery for some alternative things. Now, the highlight here is really the 5th level ability, but at level 1, you trade off that feat for shield block, which reduces the damage from successful attacks against you if you're using a heavy or tower shield, and the number of attacks that actually works against increases as the character levels up. So if you're wanting to build a character that's a little more tanky, this might be the way to go. But as I mentioned, that 5th level ability is really the best one, and this is Heaven Strike. So if you're using sword and board, once per combat you can deal damage to every enemy around you in a 20-foot range, utilizing your main hand weapon, disregarding the actual range that should apply at, but it also does not require an attack roll at all. And admittedly, I didn't have time to fully test this, but if that is able to apply potential criticals, that could potentially be very devastating, but honestly, just any big AoE like that can deal damage without rolling any sort of attack roll or save is pretty significant, and that makes that archetype worth it really just for that. But the final ability for it, the level 21 that you trade off weapon mastery for, is Defender's Gift. Any turn that your shield block actually activates, you'll deal double weapon damage for 1 round when that activates. Basically meaning if you go all 20 levels of this, you'll deal guaranteed double damage with your weapon, which could potentially make Heaven Strike even better if those two things stack. But then we have the other one, the Keen-Eyed Adventurer Witch. So this archetype really goes all in on cantrips specifically, in addition to all of your normal witch stuff, at the cost of a couple of hexes. Now, in fact, while I honestly, just to be real with you, wouldn't love to play this one personally, I will say that this is one of those archetypes that is essentially almost a full upgrade from the base class, just because you're trading only a couple of hexes for some nice abilities. But in order to get the most out of this one, you're also going to have to take a full 20 levels in it for its capstone ability, which is really good. But first up, at level 1, they trade off their hex for improved cantrips. Basically, every 2 witch levels that they have, their cantrips improve and deal more damage. There are some things and items you could potentially stack that with to make it interesting, especially when you start running out of spell slots. Not bad, not amazing either, kind of middle of the road. Then at level 6, they get Elemental Vortex. This lets them throw up a vortex for a maximum of 3 rounds at level 18, once per combat, at which point they make a combat maneuver check utilizing intelligence instead of strength to see whether or not the vortex pulls all enemies into itself and dealing damage to them of 1d8 per 2 witch levels as well, so this also increases with their level. However, a successful reflex save halves that damage, and I will say though that the intelligence modifier being the backbone of the DC for this means that you could potentially, if you stacked your intelligence really high, actually make this elemental vortex ability pretty good and a convenient form of crowd control. But as I mentioned, I would say the really cool ability here is actually their level 21 cantrip mastery. At level 20, basically all of their cantrips that use ranged touch attacks get their intelligence modifier as bonus damage, and at max level with really maxed out intelligence and the bonuses from the level 1 version of this, your cantrips at level 20 could start dealing some serious damage, which I think could be fun for some people to mess around with. But as for right now, that's basically everything there is to know about this. Honestly, as far as free DLC goes, I think it's pretty cool. I think whether or not you like Children of Morta will really decide how much you like that quest, as it's pretty simple otherwise, but I think the reward for doing that quest and these free archetypes, plus the fact that this was just a surprise update in general, makes for a pretty cool free update. So all in all, let me know what you think about this news down in the comment section below. What do you think of these archetypes? Do you think you'll make any good use of them yourself? As I know some people are still, of course, playing through the game, as it is quite massive, especially now that it's pretty much wrapped up all its paid updates and everything, though I do believe they have one more update coming for Gold Dragon a little later this year. I don't know the exact timing for that one, but it's been confirmed. But otherwise, with the game pretty much in its final state, I know people are playing it more, so potentially these could be some ways for people to utilize that, and I'd be curious to see what people think of that specifically. But either way, that's pretty much going to do it for this video. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, but regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.